Good evening, Niner fans. Good night, good morning, whatever the case is. This is a brutal time in the season right now. We're kind of in a rough stretch, and I want to talk to y'all. How are we feeling? The 49ers are just fresh off their third straight loss of the season. They were 5-0, first place, number one, so good. And all of a sudden, they've lost three games in a row. What's wrong with the 49ers? Let's talk about it tonight. I know everybody's upset. I don't think many people are going to go to sleep too happy tonight. I wanted to come on live and just talk to you guys and see what your guys' thoughts are. We'll talk through it. I feel like we all need a little bit of a therapy session. This was a brutal loss, no matter what you want to say. I know some people are saying, oh, it's early. The 49ers, they go through these ups and downs, but still, they were 5-0. They were 5-0, and everything was looking like, oh my God, they're so great. All they need to do is go get Patrick Surtain, and that'll put them over the top. Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl. We got to worry about making the playoffs at this point. At this point, the way the season is going, the way these three losses happen, like there's no finger pointing by this locker room. Like everybody's saying the right things, but it's not going the way they want it to. Debo Samuel has been hurt, and it's crippled the offense. Trent Williams being hurt has crippled the offense. But the defense, they're fully healthy, and they have not been the dominating force that we've gotten used to. So I'm asking you guys, what is wrong with the San Francisco 49ers? Let's talk about it, right? Let's talk all about it. Let's see. Tej says this is super embarrassing. This is absolutely embarrassing. Big Time says he was at the game today. It was infuriating, to say the least. I can imagine being at the game. It just seemed like the fans were out of it. Like by the fourth quarter, it just seems like there was no energy. Enrique says, I'm in pain. I don't blame you. Jimmy says, I'm not doing all right. Do I think 10-7 is good enough to win the West? I don't think 10-7 is good enough to win the West. This schedule is going to be tough. Like the 49ers can beat the Cardinals, they can beat the Rams. Seattle, they might split with. Who knows? And again, Seattle just beat a common opponent. They beat the Browns today. 49ers got to win some games. 10 wins may not be enough to win the West. Again, they might be a wild card at 10-7. So first and foremost, 49ers need to get back into the winning column. They have the bye week to really refocus and recalibrate, but it's not going to be easy after the bye. Big City says, I got a lot on my mind. We all do. Jose says, do you think the coaches are running a vanilla scheme to see where we need to work on for the stretch ahead? I hope it's not like a strategy. I just definitely think that they're not being creative enough. Kyle Shanahan, like he's not free from criticism. His offense has definitely gotten bland, and it's tough without Debo. Like he doesn't have the creativity without Debo. He's that point. He's like their man. He's the tone setter. We've said. He kind of sets that offense up. He does so much motion and things like that he's important before the snap. And when he's not out there, it takes a big part of this offense away. Kittle, he's great, but I feel like the 49ers forgot he's a guy that could go out there and catch. Today, they finally figured out Kittle's out there. Last week, they were starting to get him the ball a little bit too late, But then you have Brandon Ayuk, who we all want him to be a top wide receiver one. He's been dropping the ball a lot in big moments. He's just not doing what Debo does for this offense. And then you have Christian McCaffrey, who's so good, but it's hard to run behind this offensive line without Trent Williams. And they're putting a lot of emphasis on Christian McCaffrey. It's like they get panicked. Okay, throw it to CMC. Okay, run it with CMC. Throw it to CMC. And then if the defenses are taking away your weapons, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, it has to be the quarterback that puts this team in position to win. And Brock Purdy hasn't done enough to win games for this team and by himself. He's still young. He's going through growing pains, right? A lot of other quarterbacks have been, having bad games. Today, Patrick Mahomes had a bad game. Granted, he had a flu and it was in the snow. But quarterbacks have bad games. And Brock Purdy's young. This is his time where he's having those bad games. Last year he didn't get to have a rookie struggle where he hit the wall, right? He didn't hit the rookie wall. Now he's hitting that wall. Maybe a sophomore slump if you want to call it that, but he's still young, still, figuring things out. But you can't give him too many excuses because he did have the opportunities and he, made bad plays and threw interceptions. Brock's still young and learning, and, you can't commit, you can't give him the big bucks just yet. I know early in the season, we've all been riding high on Brock, and I'm sure he could turn it around. And I want to see how he, responds to criticism. A lot of quarterbacks, Joe Montana, Steve Young, have had bad moments. I'm not saying he's Joe Montana or Steve Young, but they've had their, fair share of bumps and bruises, and they were able to turn it around. And I think Brock can, but, he's had a rough stretch lately, and I got to see this man turn it around. So, unfortunate for Brock, unfortunate for this team. Offense is failing to score points, 17 points in the last couple of weeks. A lot of that could be play calling from Kyle Shanahan. A lot of it is just a lack of creativity. I do think the coaches are running a vanilla scheme at the end of the day. And then on defense, everybody's saying it. Everybody's talking about Steve Wilks not putting his team in the best position. But they're also missing tackles. Fred Warner said it's not the coaches, it's the players, right? Players make plays, not the coaches. So in a sense, yes, the coaches have been bad and they're putting them in bad positions, but the players, they're not living up to their potential. Fred Warner's putting his heart and soul in the game. But Nick Bosa, man, where's Nick Bosa? Nick Bosa has not been who he needs to be this year. We've talked about that a lot, and it's unfortunate to see Nick Bosa when he missed that, missed setting the edge, and they ran that touchdown in at the end. Oh man, I was sick. I was sick. Big Time says, when are we going to put the blame on the offensive genius who can only manage 17 points with 5 Pro Bowl players? So yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. Is Kyle's not free from criticism. He's great. He's done great things, but he gets to this point, certain points of the season where he limits him. He gets limited. He can't figure out how to score. He puts the team in weird positions. Sometimes he doesn't put the foot on the gas. Adjustments aren't there. He got outcoached, plain and simple, today. He got outcoached last week, and he got outcoached against the Browns 3 weeks in a row. Kyle Shanahan has been outcoached, and I'm not going to say he didn't. You got to call a spade, and he got outcoached, absolutely, today. Susan says, did you see the stat? Wilks has the best record this time of the year over Salah and D'Amico. Yeah, it doesn't feel like it. But again, I know Salah started slow. I know D'Amico started slow. And the 49ers started slow the last couple of years. Remember, 3-4, they were losing games. 49ers this year are 5-3. They're actually ahead of where they've been in the past, the last couple of years. So if we really want to be positive and spin this in a positive way, 49ers are doing better than they usually start at this point in the season. So I guess if you want to look at it as the glass half full, 49ers are at a better record than they have been in the past over the last couple of years. But at the same time, it just feels weird because normally we start slow and then we go the opposite way. Now it's kind of a free fall, and we're not used to that. We're used to okay, you start off slow. What the heck are you doing? Kick them in the gut, and then they improve. So maybe that gut punch is coming after this week, and they'll get back on the winning side. But who knows? Showboat says, where are the dogs at on this team? I don't see it. There are definitely not any dogs on this team right now, and it's unfortunate to see a lack of tenacity out there on the field. CZ says, the Browns laid out the blueprint. I definitely think that they definitely put out some film out there that teams are looking at, and they're using it because Kyle cannot figure out how to score points. 17 points in these 3 losses each week. That's brutal. It's a brutal stretch. Big City Man says, we need Dr. York at practice now. Go out there. Put some pressure on this team. Hopefully that wakes them up. They need to have the big boss man, Dr. York, out there. I agree. Trade Charvarius Holding Ward. He's been kind of in a slump too, right? He's been holding up, and he can't block. All of a sudden, or he can, defend wide receivers. Like all of a sudden, Mooney Ward, he's transformed himself. I thought he was going to be a Pro Bowl guy. He's the guy that coming into the season, he said he wanted to be a Pro Bowler. Like, he's not playing like it. Jose say it's just really hard to believe that the whole team, defense and offense, just shut down after the Cowboys game. I don't know what it is, but you're right. And I said this earlier, the 49ers seemed like they peaked. They peaked early, right? It's like peaking in middle school. 49ers peaked in middle school. Maybe they'll turn it around. I'm sure they will. It's a long season. This is the midway point. They got it the second half of the season. And the first half, 5-3. I hope that the second half is better, right? But who knows? Debbie says, a loss in front of all the former 49ers players. That's tough, man. I knew that was kind of a weird omen coming into this week, but ugly to lose in front of all those legends, you know? That's embarrassing. The 49ers have done this before. They've lost to legends before, in front of legends. But that does not feel good. You know, I'm sure they didn't like that. Big Time says they put Eddie B to shame. Yeah, you know. Alex says we play a lot of mobile quarterbacks after the bye. Hopefully these defensive schemes sharpen up. Absolutely. After the bye, it's not going to get easier. It's not like the 49ers have a bunch of no easy games. 3 losses in a row is going to tell you that no opponent can be taken lightly. They lost to the Browns, they lost to the Vikings, and they lost to the Bengals. All 3 of those teams didn't have a plus 500 record until the night. Like, Bengals were 3-3 coming into this game. The Browns, they didn't have they had 2 or 3 wins coming into that game. Beat the Niners, and now they're 4-3, a 4-3 team. So, you know, their record got a little bit better. Vikings were a 2-win team. 49ers lost to all these teams that they should have beat. On paper, they should have beat these teams, and it's frustrating, you know, to see that. I mean, were there positives? There was a few positives. Like before the interceptions, Brock was efficient. They were moving the ball, and then he made the interceptions. He made the mistakes. The Vikings said, "Hey, beat us with your quarterback." They forced their hand. Took away the run game. Kyle was making some weird calls. Like he came out in the first drive of the game, 3 straight runs, which was crazy too. So a lot of just bad play calls, a lot of bad positions by this offensive line, bad spots by the offensive line. It just wasn't good O-line play. Turnovers, you're not going to win games with 3 turnovers, right? We talked about that. 3 turnovers, that's brutal. The turnover in the red zone, those are the worst. Those are backbreakers, man. Browns game, CMC, turnover in the red zone. Last week, there was plenty of turnovers. And this week, another plenty of turnovers. And those are going to lose you games, especially in these close games. And the 49ers have been in 3 straight close games. They could have won all 3 of these games, you know? Nunn says, I can't believe Joe Burrow got away from Nick Bosa and Armstead. That play right there was, when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is going to be such a long game. They brought the pressure. They had Burrow. I thought he was down for the count, sacked him, escape. And not only did he get the ball out of his hands and throw the ball, I thought maybe he'd throw it away. The man connected with the receiver, and it was a first down. Like, I sat there going, how does this happen? How does this happen? Big Time says, Isaiah Oliver needs to go. They were targeting him every play. And that's the Steve Wilks guy, which we talked about earlier. Like, that was one of Steve Wilks' biggest free agent acquisitions. And it's terrible because it just shows you that Steve Wilks may not be the greatest judge of character. He's not the best coach. And I know a lot of people said, okay, bring Steve Wilks down from the booth, put him on the sideline. I don't buy it. Like, if he's not a good coach, what's the difference if he's on the booth or the sideline, right? And I said this, if you spray paint a black cat and make him white, right? If you take a black cat, you spray paint him and make that cat white, it's still a black cat. So if you take a bad coach from the booth, that's his thing. He's been doing it for years, right? He's been a coach for years. And all of a sudden you expect him to go on the sideline to juice up this team. That's not his vibe. He's a bad coach. He's still going to be a bad coach. It's not like magic. So I just don't buy that putting Steve Wilks down on the field is going to help this team. He's just a bad coach right now. You know? Big Time says, do I think it's realistic that they would fire Wilks this season? Midseason, I don't see it. Like I think a lot of fans want it too. They want answers. They want to see, something change, and then I think that's who everybody's pointing the finger at. But I just don't see it because midseason, who are you gonna have to replace him? I mean, maybe a in-house, hire, promotion. You can promote someone from within, but I just don't see it. I think Kyle's gonna ride this out. Maybe it was the wrong call. It looks like it was the wrong decision to hire him. He never was an elite coach. Like he's had experience. He's a veteran. So I think Kyle said, okay, this guy's gonna come in and take my defensive scheme and he's just gonna coach it. But it hasn't been the case. Like I know Wilks has been trying to do his own things, and everybody should. If you're a defensive coordinator, you're going to want to implement the strategies that you've used your whole life, which you've learned. You don't want to just copy paste somebody else's homework, which I think Kyle wanted him to, but I don't think Wilks looked at that scheme and says, oh, okay, I have to do it exactly the same way as D'Amico. He's going to put his own spin on it. I'm sure Kyle told us, hey, he's going to keep the scheme the same. That's why we wanted him, blah, 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 blah. I mean, of course you're going to say that on an interview. Yeah, I'll keep it the same to get the job. But now Steve Wilks, it's just not the right. Maybe he is calling some of the same plays that D'Amico did, but there's times where he puts the players in the wrong positions. I don't know. I don't think they'll fire him though midseason. Julius says, who would be more expensive in terms of extending between Chase Young and Montez Sweat? Probably Montez Sweat because he's healthier. Chase Young, I think if the 49ers do go after one of those guys, it's probably going to be Chase Young because he's quote-unquote cheaper, right? The injuries, it's going to be cheaper to trade for him. And, the 49ers is probably going to be a rental. He doesn't have his fifth-year option picked up, so the 49ers don't have to pick him up and sign him next year. It'll be a rental for this year. Although, right now Chase Young, he was a higher draft pick than Montez Sweat. He's the bigger name, but Montez Sweat's been a really good player, and he's, probably has a little bit more expensive contract coming up if they were to keep him because he hadn't been injured like Chase Young, So, yeah, this is true. The team lives with the run game. As the run game goes, so does the offense. I don't even think it's a running back. It's the offensive line. They cannot create lanes. I can't create lanes. Jalen Moore and Colton McKivitz and Spencer Burford and all these guys on the line. Jake Brendel was getting pushed around. Spencer Burford's getting pushed around, and he's creating penalties. A lot of weird penalties. And then the edge, the offensive tackles have been horrible. They can't run the ball because they don't have Trent Williams. That shows you how important Trent Williams is to this team. Defense was not great, but still gave an opportunity. I mean, at the end of the day, the last 3 weeks, the 49ers defense, as bad as they, have played overall, they still put this team in positions to win. The first loss they had against the Browns, obviously Jake Moody sold that. Brock put him in a good position last week. Brock Purdy threw interceptions, and the offense faltered. And then this week, offense faltered on him. So it's a combination of both. The defense isn't playing up to their expectations. The offense has not been playing up to their expectations. Overall, both sides of the ball have just stank. Yeah, so both sides of the ball have been absolutely bad. 17 points, 3 straight weeks is not good. Defense, again, they've been getting ran through so bad. The defense cannot stop the run. Joe Burrow running all over you, that's rough life, man. The fact, again, the play that killed me was when Joe Burrow came through that line and he had the quarterback draw. Holy smokes, man. CZ says definitely doesn't help that the Browns and the Bengals had fresh legs off the bye week. That's true, but, you can't make excuses. The 49ers had chances to win both of those games. But, again, poor execution. Penalties have been ugly. Just turnovers have been brutal. And the fact that the 49ers can't run the ball, those are the big keys. The 49ers can't run the ball. They're a run-first team. If you can't run, you're not going to be able to set up the pass. Nobody's afraid of your offense. Defensively, they're just making bad tackles. They're making weird penalties. And they're getting gashed in the run game. And then it's opening up the pass game for everybody. And people are throwing on us. And then again, penalties, and turnovers. Though you can't make mistakes. Penalties and turnovers are going to make any team lose. And the 49ers have had an abundance of both, unfortunately. So Ugly loss, ladies and gentlemen. And again, there's a lot of factors of why this team lost. It's not just one player. It's not just one man. Not just one coach. Um, Frustrating. The 49ers hopefully can make a splash the next couple of days, trade deadline. But if they make a splash, like, is it going to fix the season? I don't know. Last year it did. CMC came in and he fixed the season. You hope that whoever they bring in, if they do bring in someone, can be the spark, right? Just be the spark plug to fuel them to wins. Uh, you know, so BA seems checked out to me, says Susan. Big City Man says BA's contract. I don't know, man. Is he worth 14 million a year with these drops? Purdy needed that catch, and yeah, that catch was those drops. Not only are they tough on BA, but they're tough for Brandon Ayuk mentally, or sorry, Brock Purdy mentally. He's like, man, my receiver can't even bail me out, and he's supposed to throw it to the guy. He's been making drops on a weekly basis. So I love BA, but absolutely, that's the guy that has to make those catches. So, but we'll see. Um, Give you a couple more minutes here. Again, I want to know, what do you guys think is the reason that the 49ers are losing? Tell me, what do we need? Do we need a corner? Mario says we need a quarter. We need a corner. That's why they're losing. Why are the 49ers losing? 3 straight games. They were 5-0. They were the best team in football. Everybody was riding with us. Super Bowl favorites. Favorites. Why are we losing? You tell me. Please tell me, why are the 49ers losing? DBs, Big City, says trade BA for Sertan. Tej says coaching is ASS. Alex is corner and another wide receiver since Shanny is scared of rookies. Shanahan doesn't want to play as young guys. They have Jair Brown, Jordan Mason, Ronnie Bell. Play them. Defense is selling, says Nathan. Cornerback now, says Debbie. Wemby says because Brock Purdy fell back to earth, he's not superhuman right now. That's a good call. Big Time says it's coaching 100%. This roster's too good to play like this. Absolutely true. The 49ers should not be playing this way. Big City says he's using a rookie quarterback and kicker. How are we Super Bowl team? They were a Super Bowl team after 5 weeks. Coaching, penalties, not running the ball, injuries, everything that could go wrong is hurting the 49ers. I think, to me, one of the biggest reasons why the 49ers are losing, it's been my last take of the night. Obviously, Steve Wilks has been a letdown compared to D'Amico Ryans. I think that's definitely one of the big cases. But not having Debo and Trent Williams, to me, has been not just huge for the offense in terms of what they do, right? We know how good Trent Williams is blocking. We see how great Debo is for this offense, setting things up, yards after the catch, because we all know this offense is predicated on the yak plays, right? You get the small little pass and turn it upfield. Debo does that so good, the jet sweeps, everything else. But their physicality, their aggressiveness, they're the guys that lead this offense. Like, you could tell when they come out to the boombox, right? Who are the 2 guys up front? Debo and Trent, always. Like, they're the catalysts. They're the leaders. They're the dogs on this team. Like, they bring out the dog out of everybody else. Like, they are the aggressive players that the 49ers rely on. And they're not there. That's huge for the 49ers. Like, they're supposed to be the bullies. They're supposed to be the team that hits you in the mouth. And Debo and Trent, to me, are like the ones that do it the most. They're the most physical players on this team. And without them, I think half of their identity on offense is gone. It's gone. So that is the way I look at it. It's unfortunate. We'll talk all about it tomorrow. Let's hope we get a good rest. I'm going to get some rest tonight, man. I'm tired. I'm sick of this losing 3 in a row. But again, unfortunately, could be worse, right? Fortunately, however you want to look at it, it could be worse. 5-3. They have 2 weeks to do some soul searching, ladies and gentlemen. Let's hope that they fix it, get better. Because I do not like seeing the Seattle Seahawks in first place. You guys have a good rest of your night. Take care. Bang, bang. Niner gang.